Crypto's a $4 trillion asset class, and that's a lot of money. But as an asset class, that's really small. There's $120 trillion of cash in any currency. US dollars like probably 40% of that. Gold, which to me is just a pet rock, like I understand it's shiny, I like jewelry, it's used in very small numbers in a computer for its total market cap. People will say that. It's $23 trillion. Bitcoin alone is better than gold. I mean, it's easily verifiable, way easier to transfer. Try moving $1 billion in gold. That's your answer. However, past that, the altcoin race is actually more interesting to me. It's only $1.5 trillion outside Bitcoin. I just wrote 7,000 words in my Substack. You can go see that if you want, but here's the gist. I think it's going after the fiat. Total amount of contracts done in US dollars or euros, anything like that. I think it's the backbone of the new age of the digital economy. So $120 trillion is the addressable market. And that's in today's dollars. Money supply is growing like 10% per year. So if you're looking out 10 years, that's probably going to at least double. So if that's where we're going, where more assets and more of the economy is going to be digitized and tokenized, you're projecting an asset class, if you just indexed it, to go from 1.5 trillion to do basically 100x. That means if you bought the S&P of crypto, which doesn't really exist, but if you did, you would get 100x in 10 to 15 years. Like, that's insane. So then if you're picking winners there, you're talking 1,000x. The problem is picking winners. Same thing in the stock market. Who would have known that Nvidia, the gaming company, would have become the leader in AI? Some people. I bought Nvidia for gaming, so it wasn't me. But you can still end up being right, which is the funny part. Now back to the indexing strategy. There are some things that I would definitely exclude, like XRP, no use case for me that makes any sense. Cardano, Dino, not use. And there's a lot of high market cap stuff where you could probably wipe off, 750 billion, like half of the altcoin market. You can just wipe off and index the other half. But you know what? If you like XRP, all I would say is just buy a little bit of the other ones. Because there is the chance that a new crypto comes out and you miss it. Just buy that one too when you do. Just re-weight like the S&P does. Even if you just think that, I don't know, maybe a third of the economy goes on there, you're still talking about a 50x. 10% of the economy, you're talking about a 10x basically. Don't think that you're late. I remember I chose in 2017 whether or not to buy one Bitcoin, half a Bitcoin actually, or go to a concert with my college girlfriend. Obviously, I chose wrong, right? But you have to stay with it. Like, it is not too late to figure out what is happening in crypto, what is the potential, fade the bubble narrative. Sure, it may get frothy, but to say it's a bubble, you really have to not understand the technology. Lock in, figure out the advancements, figure out the kind of dynamic between Ethereum's very decentralized, Bitcoin's obviously most decentralized, Ethereum's very decentralized, Solana less so. Then you go down and it's more and more centralized as adoption is lower. But as adoption goes up, more validators. There's things like XRP, like it's always going to be centralized. But for most of the altcoins, the more adoption there is, the more decentralized it is, which is a benefit. There is first mover advantage, but at the same time, it is harder for Ethereum to change and be the leader because they have to change so much, right? And there's already so much adoption versus Sui can come on and be like, we see what Ethereum did, we see what Solana did better than Ethereum, and we're going to do this better than Solana. And when they come out, they can be more agile. It's kind of like a startup company. That being said, your friendly reminder to figure out right before alt season what's going on in the altcoin space. Really crap coins can pump, that's for sure. And it might not happen in the next 2 weeks. I'm not super bullish on the market going into and right after Jackson Hole. But have a little bit of a long view. And I would encourage you, yes, it's important to think in terms of cycles in crypto. I think we still have the 4-year cycle coming, but also think in terms of decades. Think about 10 years. Consider this a retirement asset. Could Bitcoin go to 10 million? What would that mean? Okay, well, if it does, that's $100 trillion. What does that mean for the altcoin space, right? It would be dope if Bitcoin did 100x, but the winner in the altcoin space, unless Bitcoin actually wins that, and that's why it's at 10 million, would go to like, you know, you could see 1,000, 10,000x in that space. What I would say too is, just to put this all in, picture, is that there's $1,500 trillion in global assets, and probably double that in derivatives. So there's a lot of money in the world. I know $1 trillion is a ridiculous amount of money. I know $1 billion is a ridiculous amount of money for us peasants. Okay, there's a lot of money in the world, and then the derivatives of that are extremely high, and a lot of them are on paper between banks and not. It just like, on the blockchain, you can't do a lot of the leverage and BS that happens in our financial system right now. When you kind of like understand that, you realize like, how great would it be if everything was just tokenized? There was no naked short selling. There was no interest rate swaps. There was no like BS, or at least it was all collateralized. Like, derivatives are great, but not when it's just like on paper derivatives. That makes no sense to me. It is massive systemic risk versus you can have controlled risk. You can have a lot of leverage in cryptocurrency, but it's all controlled. Does that make sense? Like, think about Bitcoin. You can go 100x long Bitcoin on some of these sites. They will liquidate you if it goes down 0.8%, and they will cap your total position size so that the cushion there is enough to make sure 99.9% of the time, the person that's liquidating you, the protocol, is not going to lose money. And if they do, they have backup funds, liquidator funds. And if those fail, that goes down. It is not the entire market. It is not like 2008 where mortgages explode because they're giving strippers 4 houses with no income like it's candy, that the banks are going to go down and the people are going to lose their deposits. No, it is all contained. If it breaks one level, it goes to a bigger level. It's not going to affect the whole system. Now, Luna and FTX, did that crash the whole market? Yes, because fear comes in. But notice, didn't need a bailout, right? That's the difference. If you have custody cryptos, you have counterparty risk, but the counterparties are not tied together in the same way where it is truly systemic. There's high volatility, but volatility is not inherently risk unless you use leverage. If you're just buying spot cryptos, you're not going to lose your cryptos, and a bet is a bet. You should consider everything to be able to go to zero, even stocks. Like, your life shouldn't change if you buy Apple and Apple goes to zero. Now, do I think that will happen? No. Do I think Bitcoin will go to zero? No. But the opportunity is so massive, and governments are printing about 10% per year over the past 10 years. So you have to think about not just the inflation rate, which is CPI, because anyone that's been to college knows, or had major surgery, knows that the inflation rate is higher than the average of 4% over the past 5 years, or whatever it is over the past 10, 20 years. It's because the money printing. So if you want to store value, you go towards Bitcoin. But if you want to think about the digitization of the economy, you look towards altcoins. And those stories, I believe, are going to start being told, because you saw how Ethereum is doing. It usually goes Bitcoin outperforms early in the cycle. Then Ethereum starts outperforming. Then it's major alts, and then it's new projects and meme coins. Although meme coins got pumped early this cycle. So that is my long form thoughts on this Sunday, and I've got a very needy cat. So let me know what you think.